I didn't think I'd ever stop stitching in hand, but this project is changing my mind. So the projects that I'm currently working on include my dad's camera, which is based off of this photograph, and I charted it myself. The other one that I've got, Quilted Cats by the Flossie Fox shop on Etsy. She has some really cute designs. This one I have started a few years back, but I wanted to show the difference in technique between these two projects. I typically stitch in hand for various reasons, which I'll get into in a minute, but for this project, my dad's camera project, I've decided to use the stand, which is an adjustable stand I had bought a few years back, and Q-snap frame, because this piece is going to take me longer. This piece has sentimental value to me, and I find that stitching in a frame and on a stand makes my stitches a lot neater than if I stitched holding the fabric in my hands. You can see that the fabric is a lot stiffer, which means the holes are easier to see and easier for the thread to pass through, which in turn makes the finished stitches a lot neater and more uniform than the other method. I normally stitch in hand because I like the ease of it. I can just grab the project out of the bag and essentially just get started to stitch. I also find it pretty portable. I don't really need a lot of setup. I can just get some good light, grab my tablet, and sit on the couch, and I can happily stitch with just all of that. I also find it significantly faster, which I will show you here once I get this threaded, just how much faster things go. So I find that I can kind of roll up these, find my spot. This next stitch is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches away from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This method is a lot more fiddly in that it takes some time to adjust the stand to where I have enough room behind to pull the threads back and forth, but then also at a height that's comfortable to stitch for some time. And every time you move one of these 3 knobs, you got to move, it's kind of the other 2 to get it to work right. You can see even now this is leaning a little, it's a little off center. So let me adjust this a little bit more so that it stands up and counterbalances a bit. And adjust this back down, and then adjust this back up. This is stitched on a 16 count Ada fabric, which is a decent sized. It's not too small to where I can't see what I'm doing, but it's also not so large that the piece ends up being ginormous, which is not what I want. This is a full coverage pattern, meaning that every hole on the fabric of the design is covered in a stitch. And for some reason, I didn't limit this pattern too much to the different colors because I wanted to get the variation to where you can actually see the differences in the cliff behind and in the trees and the waterfall. And so there's a lot of very similar colors next to each other. I'm also stitching in what they call a diagonal, stitching diagonally in sections. I've used a fabric marker to mark off a 10 by 10 grid, which corresponds to these larger lines in the pattern, so that the reference points from like where the stitch is relative to one of the lines in the grid means I don't have to count very far. At most, I might count 6 stitches from a line. These threads that are kind of hanging off here are what is known as called parked stitches, meaning that I parked this particular thread, and this one is, let's see on my pattern, 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30. On my pattern, it is this thread. You can see on my pattern that I have finished most of that 3rd diagonal, so I'm going to move to the 4th. And I like to start top to bottom, and so I'm going to start here with this parked thread, which is a brown number 841. And I believe it is this one right here. Another difference in technique with this versus stitching in hand is that I will make full crosses, meaning I make 1 full stitch. I'm always coming up in the bottom left corner, going up and over to the top right. Doing what's called two-handed stitching. So I have my right hand behind, catch the needle with my left, go down, catch the needle with my right, come back up and over to finish 4 stitches in this color. Then I will go to my pattern and mark those 4 stitches off. What I'll do next is look to see where else that color shows up, and that within the diagonal it shows up a little further down. So I will park the thread down here, and I set up shortcuts on Pattern Keeper to where a double tap is shows that I parked it where I parked it, and that's found in the settings, shortcuts. In move mode, I'm in markup mode, so if I double click on a single stitch, I have it chosen to park thread in lower corner. And it's parked always in the lower left corner where it is going to be ready to be stitched when I get down there. The next thread the next section I'm going to work is here, DMC number 7, which is like a lighter tan color. You can see the highlights of where those stitches are on Pattern Keeper. I am not super strict on staying within the diagonal that you can see marked on the pattern. Oops. I'm not super strict where I'll stay within the diagonal, so even though these 2 stitches are outside the diagonal, I'll still stitch them because they're relatively close to that diagonal. I will not stitch these down here. They're a little further away. There's no rhyme or reason. That's just kind of what makes sense to me and how I prefer to work the pattern. There are some downsides to stitching this way. 1, it is a lot slower. 2, it's a lot less portable. I can't take this stand on a plane, for example, or even sitting on the couch trying to balance all of this isn't easy either. And the lighting in my living room isn't great, so I end up having to bring over a clip light or the magnifying light that I have. They run off a USB charging cable, so I typically just bring like a power bank, so I'm not completely tethered to a long extension cord while sitting on the couch. But I have made it work where the stand sits comfortably in my lap. I stack some pillows next to me to prop up the tablet and my thread packs. But the end result is significantly neater and the tension is a lot more consistent, making the product a lot nicer looking. All right. My little needle minder, mark off this next row. You can see this next stitch is outside of the diagonal, but I'm gonna stitch it anyway. the one below it. Most of my projects are projects I just do because I like to do them, not necessarily because I have an idea of what I'm going to do with the finished design. And so when the tension's a little off, or there's knots on the back, or the stitches aren't super even or consistent, I'm not bothered by it. But because this project is a lot more sentimental, I'm putting in the effort to make it look as neat as possible so that the end product looks as best as it can. I am pretty sure that it's going to turn out well, and that I'm going to want to frame it and hang it either in my room or somewhere else inside the house, because the camera and the trip mean a lot to me, and makes me think about my dad and think about how much influence he had on me. And this piece, I feel, is going to honor that. So with 24,742 stitches, this piece is going to take me quite some time to finish, and that's okay. I do enjoy the rhythm of this, and I do get satisfaction in how neat it looks so far, and being deliberate in where I'm placing the needle, where I'm keeping the threads. I will try to figure out some better way of managing, all of these loose threads. Most of the time I just wrap it up, just kind of keep it somewhat contained. There's been moments where they've been hanging off to the side like this, and I've caught the threads in a stitch, and then I had to go and unpick it, and that was not fun or enjoyable. So don't recommend recommend keeping your parked threads neat somewhere on the front. All right, so I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to park this thread. I believe it's going to go, let's say, down here. Oops. All right, let's see, where's that at? Oh, here we go. That one, so 1, 2, 3 down, right next to this one. 1, 2, 3. All right. The next one I'm going to do, let's go with this 3790. Which I believe is this one. There's only, let's see, 6 stitches. To figure out a better way to thread these needles. It's kind of fiddly. what else has been going on? I think I had mentioned in a previous video that I was traveling this last week for work for a leadership conference that my sector was hosting. So it had been planned for months. They sent out a save the date back in, I think, early March for a 2-day offsite. It was directors and above, and then senior technical folks. I work for a large company, and so directors and vice presidents just within my sector, I'm sure that there were about 500 or so folks at this leadership conference. So it was Wednesday, Thursday. So I flew Tuesday evening, landed fairly late at Dulles, and I typically rent a car, but since we were going to be basically just at a hotel in Crystal City and not really expected to go anywhere, I opted to just take a taxi from the airport to the hotel, which was actually pretty luxurious compared to my typical trips east, in that I didn't have to wait a ridiculous length of time for the Avis the Avis bus to get to the rental car facility, and I could zone out on the drive. That time of the evening, it only took maybe 30 minutes to get from Dulles to Crystal City, which was nice. Then the day started fairly early, 7:30 a.m. Eastern, and then we went all day until 5:30-ish. So I was pretty wiped out. Coincidentally, a number of my classmates were in town. I went to West Point, and it's a pretty large network of alumni grads, and they were in town for a few of the folks were in town to attend a Service Academy career conference, either as attendees or panel speakers, or sent by their company to recruit. And so, coincidentally, we found out we were all staying at the same hotel, and so I did get to hang out with them for a little bit on Wednesday evening, which was, despite me being super duper tired, was really fun, and it was nice to catch up with some folks that I normally don't talk to or have seen since maybe one of our reunions. The women in my class, we tend to keep in touch pretty well. And so the one friend that I met up with lives in Cincinnati, and my mom lives in Dayton. So typically whenever I'm visiting my mom, I try to get together with her for lunch or dinner. And then, so that was fun. That was a lot of fun, just to hang out, to be there and hang out and, catch up with some folks that I hadn't seen in a really long time. So that was good. And then, flew back relatively late on Thursday. And so when I mean late, my flight left at 8, probably landed in Denver around, 10 something. By the time I got home, it was 11, showered, got wound down for bed. It was close to midnight. I had planned to take Friday off of work, so that was nice. Kind of took my time getting up Friday. Ended up hitting golf balls with my sister at the course close by, and then playing at a super cute and fun par 3 here in Denver to kind of just, it was a nice day. It was 70 degrees and sunny. So any time spent outside is good time. most of the time with my sister is fun. She also lives here in Denver. So it was good. I feel like my golf game is getting better. My husband and I have been participating in what's called the PGA Hope program, and it's actually a really cool program for veterans where it's up to like 6 weeks of free golf instruction. And so the local course to us here had slots open, so we snagged them, and so we've been able to get hour and a half long lessons for we're on week 3 for free. And the ratio of instructor to student it's like really low. The last couple classes I've been to, there's been 2 instructors for 7 or 8 students. And so I know pretty immediately the one golf pro fixed some issues with my swing, and now I feel like my balls are going straight, like I'm going straighter, which it's always helpful, but it's just nice. I don't know, free lessons, improvement in my game. It's been fun. We've had a lot of fun. And so I booked a tee time for my husband and I on Saturday morning, super early, unfortunately. It was like 7:10 tee time, and I feel like I just felt like I was hitting really good, and so we were paired up with a couple of other ladies who were just fun, and it was just nice and chill, and no pressure. No, I kept score just because I like to keep score for myself to see if I've improved or not, but they were just lovely to play with on a Friday morning. So that was fun. And then outside of that, not a whole lot. I did finish listening to the Throne of Glass series. I am glad I decided to listen to that. Audiobooks. I did finish listening to Throne of Glass while on my trip. Still love that series. I think every year I'll probably reread it, or maybe every other year, but listening to it was really enjoyable. And waiting for A Parade of Horribles to come out, which I believe the audiobook is releasing it on Tuesday. That's the next book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I did look to see what was available on Libby, and I listened to The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Krulak, which I did not like very much. In fact, I don't even want to recommend it to people. I had listened to Hidden Pictures by him, which I thought was pretty good for a thriller. And so this was available. It was relatively short. I want to say it was around 12 hours. And it just went on too long. I wouldn't say it's a predictable book. I really didn't know where it was going or what, quote, twists were going to be revealed towards the end, but there were so many turns towards the end of it that it really could have just ended, a lot sooner than it did. I kept listening to it for a few reasons. I was interested to hear the ending. I wanted to see how things would work out for our main character, and whether the bad guys were going to get their due. But it was just, I don't know. I thought it was really kind of got to the point where it was just annoying. And so I, quote, hate listened to the rest of it. hate listened to the rest of it and, you know, texted my friends and was like, I listened to this so that you guys don't have to. Do not recommend. I kept listening to it because I want books to entertain me, and the book, you know, it did entertain me, but I also feel like if I had another option available to me, I would have taken it, but I didn't, and it did not take me very long. I listened to it while doing chores, housework, walking, and driving, so it really, I finished it in a couple days, so there you go. I did just start today a book called Game On, which is like, I'll put a picture of it up on the video, but Game On by Nevessa Allen. She wrote Lights Out. So this is the book 3 in the Lights Out trilogy. I've read the first book, or I listened to the first book. I don't know why I didn't finish the second book. And so this is the third. I really did just start it today. It's maybe an hour into it, and it's pretty entertaining. It's really dark. Her first book, Lights Out, was, you know, pretty dark but funny, and, you know, do pay mind to the trigger warnings at the beginning of the book or in the description. This type of dark romance with very, very spicy scenes in it. They are not for everyone. In fact, I was a little surprised at some of the content in it, but I'm easily entertained, and I found the narrator really, really, really good, and the story super funny for how almost disturbing it sounds. But anyway, I'm listening to that. I should have that finished before A Parade of Horribles comes out. And other than that, I've been watching some of the NBA playoffs, mostly the Eastern Conference games. I'm still upset about the Nuggets losing, that I don't really care to watch any of the Western Conference games because I don't want to watch Minnesota play. I really hate watching Oklahoma City play, and I really don't even like watching the Lakers play, so I'm not watching those games. I did catch the Avalanche versus Minnesota Wild. A couple of those games have been on. I've watched a little bit of the game last week while in Virginia. I think I caught the Wednesday night game, and then, or excuse me, the Tuesday. Yeah, it was a Wednesday night game. Maybe it's a Tuesday night game. And then the game Saturday night, I did start to go to bed right around the middle of the third period when it looked like Colorado was going to lose. Woke up this morning and they did lose 5-1, so that was super not exciting. So other than that, that's what I've been listening to book-wise. But I've got a couple sewing projects in mind as well that I will begin maybe this week, maybe not. I did realize I needed more thread and then some interfacing and some other random notions. So I spent some time this morning on wawak.com and put in an order. I also got to work updating some of my inventory you know, sewing notions, tracking sheets, so that I don't end up buying, you know, 50 yards of twill tape if I've already got 20 yards on hand, because that sometimes happens if I don't pay attention. I also am trying to figure out what to do with my thread storage. So there's that. I think this is a good place to pause on this project. What I stitched, 50 stitches so far today. So we'll see. We'll get to work on the other one. I'm not sure I'm completely converted to using the stand. In fact, I'll probably continue to use both methods depending on what the project is and what the intended outcome is going to be. I do understand why people love stitching this way, why people use stands. The end result really is so much cleaner and neater. I would like to hear from you guys what you prefer and why, or if there's another method that I'm not aware of that could still give me a balance between portability, ease of use, and a really, really clean finish. Thanks.